I have to give a shout out to two people, both Caressa McKnight and to DE, because they both sent me this story about the same time. And as you can see by the image on your screen, we are back in Alabama, as in Sweet Home, Alabama. It should be called Tainted, because this story is basically saying something that many of us are very familiar with, but on a very high scale. So according to this article coming from the Atlanta Daily World, it said police in Alabama planted drugs and guns on over 1,000 innocent black men. Are we shocked? No. Are we surprised? No. Because historically, this is what they've been doing to black men on a historical level. This is, again, systematic racism in the flesh right here, which you're listening to right here. And that's why the prison complex is filled with black men, innocent black men today. And that's why you'll have palm-colored people literally putting out there that we make up a huge population of the prison industry or the prison complex. Here's one of the reasons as to why. Not every black man that's in jail right now is a criminal. When you have stuff like this going on, this is another reason as to why that's happening. They have to keep those prisons filled by any means. Remember that video that came out a couple years ago where you had on camera, it showed cops planting drugs on black men, planning to put them in their cars or putting them in scenes of a crime somewhere, or what could have been a crime, to elevate the issue. And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll steal those drugs from an evidence lockup or off of a drug dealer, and then they'll plant that drug onto an innocent black man and him up and say that it's his. And these are the same people who claim they have such a dangerous job. They make their job dangerous when they put themselves in certain situations to be harmed. And it's pretty much all on them. And they act like we shouldn't be outraged behind that. The article reads, black men in Alabama were racially profiled and made criminals by a group of racist police. According to the Henry County report, the incident occurred in Dothan, Alabama, where at least 12 white police officers were involved. The officers were a part of a narcotics team and were supervised by Lieutenant Steve Parrish, who is now Dothan's police chief, and Andy Hughes, Assistant Director of Homeland Security for Alabama. The officers would target innocent black men and plant drugs and weapons on them. Black men would be arrested and charged by District Attorney Doug Valeska. Valeska knew that the drugs were being planted and continued to prosecute while protecting the officers. Now, mind you, this is the damn DA, the district attorney, who's basically like the head honcho for that district. And he knew what was going on and still allowed it to happen and still allowed it to occur. Like I said, if you want to get a glimpse of what systematic racism looks like, here you go. Because if it was a black DA and he tried to do this with 1,000 palm-colored men, he would be out on his ass. Nearly 1,000 innocent black men were arrested and falsely prosecuted, and many of the black men who were falsely arrested are still in jail serving time. Beginning in 1996, the families of the black men who were convicted began to complain. However, they were often ignored. It's a group of white police officers who noticed the crimes and shared the information with Internal Affairs Division for an investigation to take place. More racism. They didn't believe the black families. But the minute the white officers who weren't with the shit said something, then that's when they decided to act. But it doesn't surprise me, because at the end of the day, this is Alabama we're talking about here. A lot of those beneath the Bible Belt states operate on very old tropes under the Jim Crow umbrella. I'm telling you, all they did was They brought pieces and remnants of Jim Crow. They didn't bring the entire Jim Crow with them, but they brought pieces and remnants of Jim Crow with them to the 21st century, the 20th century and the 21st century, to let you know that it's still here. When they talk about Make America Great Again, that's the part of America that they're talking about. The part that was great for when you had a certain group of people who operated a certain way towards us and could get away with it. It was soon discovered that the police officers who planted the drugs and weapons were members of a racist terrorist organization that was designated as a hate group. Another thing I keep talking about. They just hung up their hoods or burnt their hoods and traded it in for something else. That hate never left their heart. It never left their body. It was always there. But you know what kills me? Is you have some of these silly ass Negroes out here who swear up and down racism doesn't exist, i.e. Candace the Coonstress Owens, her lying ass, and a few others. Like I said, if you are black and just because you never experienced racism a day in your life, that doesn't mean that one, you won't deal with it, and two, someone close to you won't deal with it either. It proves once again that police officers and district attorney across the nation are not being vetted properly. How is it possible for a racist organization to have that much control and power over a police department? It's not really that hard. The United States continues to fail its black citizens by ignoring obvious mistreatment that goes unpunished. Well, when they see you as 3/5 of a human being, it's really not that hard to ignore you. Since the initial investigation, most of the racist officers involved have advanced in their careers, no surprise there, and hold prominent positions. The group of officers who presented the evidence to Internal Affairs Division are willing to testify against racist officer if U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch assigns a special prosecutor from outside of Alabama to handle the case. None of this, let me repeat that again, none of this surprises me. Now you see it says 1,000 innocent black men, and some of them are still in jail to this day because of what they did. The district attorney was in on it. Now I don't know if he's still the district attorney, but from the looks of it, it sounds like he is. So they're all in on it. This again is systematic racism fleshed out. This is in the flesh right here, which you are hearing, which you are witnessing. And when we tell people about it, they look at us like we got 3 damn heads, like we're the fucking Hydra dragon. Or goddamn King Ghidorah from Godzilla. That's how they look. What they look at is like when we say something like this and try to say that it doesn't exist. It definitely does. Just because it doesn't exist in your realm, in your bubble, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. But this is messed up to the highest degree because these men's lives are ruined behind these cops' lies. And it said they got prominent positions and moved up in their careers. They ranked up, they got promotions. And what do we say? They don't get fired, they get transferred. Well, these individuals didn't get fired, but they damn sure got promoted. They like, this is your job well done. It was like they're wearing it like it's a badge of honor. That's why many of them become cops, because they want to carry out their systematic racism fantasy. That's all it boils down to. That's why many of them get looked at with the side eye when something happens to them. Many of us feel absolutely nothing when something does. It just is what it is. Because remember what happened with Michael Johnson down in Dallas back in 2016 when he killed those 5 cops? People were trying to say they were trying to make us feel bad for the cops, but to be honest, we really didn't. And then we really didn't feel bad for him when we started to dig into the past of one cop in particular and found out he had ties to racist organizations that probably was similar to the one where these cops was involved in that, put all these innocent black men in jail because they planted drugs and weapons on them. Because they have to keep those prisons filled to the brim. They have to. That's how they make money. That's how the prison industry makes its bread and butter, is by keeping them filled. I remember it was some school in Philadelphia that got pretty much demolished, and what did they replace it with? A goddamn prison. And I'm willing to bet it's in an area that's near majority black zone, as far as demographics go, as far as where people live. But that's how it is. That is how it is. And the thing is, it's been going on so long, at this point, it's almost like nothing will happen. If it says 1996 was the earliest date that they mentioned in this article. You're talking 23 years ago? Going on 24 years. They've adapted to that. They had to find out a way to still keep black men in some kind of restraint. I just did a video talking about how, what's his name? Michael Bloomberg trying to apologize for his role with stop and frisk. That was another systematic thing they did on black people, specifically black men back in the 90s in New York. And this right here is no different. 1,000 black men, especially when our population is not a very, very high number, that's a lot. That's a dent for us. Because I don't know what the black population is in the state of Alabama or anything like that, but that's a dent for us. Because once they put you inside those jails, they almost pretty much no longer consider you a citizen. Because basically you lose all human, like not human, but all citizen rights, because you really can't do nothing. So they figure, oh, we can't get him in the grave. Let's just put him in a box. Either way, he won't be considered a citizen. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, and I'll talk to you in the next one.